Invocation there, Mr. Barr. Okay, let's please stand for an invocation, and we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance.
May we bow in attitude of prayer. Heavenly Father, we say thank you for this day, for this beautiful day, fall weather, and Lord, just direct us and guide us here this afternoon and this evening in the town of Hancock. Lord, in our travels, in our appointments with folks, just give us guidance, direction. We would honor and please you in the things we do and say. We lift up our law enforcement officers. Lord, just watch over them, keep them safe. There's so many challenges out and about. Lord, just we lift them up and just pray that you will guard them and guide them in all their ways. Direct us and use us, I pray in thy name. Amen.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to call the Washington County Board of County Commissioners September 26, 2017 meeting to order. And I'd also like to follow that up with the approval of the September 19th minutes. Need a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Motion and second for the approval of those minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
And you know, I wasn't there for the second half of the meeting either.
Okay, let's.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Barr, second by Commissioner Klein. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain. Okay. Thank you. Commissioners' reports and comments. We'll start with Commissioner Klein.
I'll wait till this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kiefer.
I'll also reserve my comments for this evening in Hancock.
Commissioner Myers and Commissioner Barr. Okay, for myself, I do have a few things. Last week's evening meeting, I wanted to ask for a consensus to support a letter of opposition to the McCleary Hill project. I know the city of Hagerstown, they opposed it, and they're submitting their letter. And I'd like for our letter to mirror much of what the city had in theirs. And I think if you remember, I went to the meeting, they already own land, I believe, that adjoins the property where they want to purchase. And I don't know why they couldn't build it there, so they want to purchase another piece of property. So I don't know if the commissioners would be...
I'd be willing to support a letter of that nature.
Okay, and like I said, we could send it out to all of the agencies involved, up and including the financiers. And I know I'm going to support it, so I'm bringing it up. So I guess...
I think I would also support that letter, attending that meeting a few weeks ago, I guess it was now. You know, a lot of good information was shared and discussed. I think I would like to see if other possibilities could be explored for that project. So I would join in on that.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're just on a consensus.
No.
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 So we have 3 commissioners that do support a letter of opposition. Staff will get it together and we'll get it out to the commissioners.
Let me clarify. I feel it's a city matter. It's a city problem.
Yes.
And I don't think I would feel right if the city was commenting on issues that we have to take up with planning and zoning and things like that. I think our individual, not discussing the fact that individual opinions, that's fine. And I think everybody has a right to their opinion. I think when we start sending letters, we don't have one voice. It's got, next time it can be
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Also, I have Washington County, some information from the Washington County Health Department. They've been working with the city of Hagerstown to plan a short, about 30-minute lunchtime walk for the Walk Maryland Day on October 4th at noon on the Hagerstown Cultural Trail. And they'd certainly love to have anyone from the county elected officials. So that will be October 4th, this coming Wednesday. I don't think they're going to turn anyone away, are they? Yeah. It's the health department.
It's open to everyone.
It's all for a healthy county. So that'll be October 4th. And did I give you the time? It's approximately a 30-minute walk and
Noon to 12:30, I thought.
okay, I do not have the time on here. So it is noon.
It's
Until-
the noon hour. I think it's,
The
yeah,
lunch hour.
12 to 1.
yeah.
Okay, and then I had, thought I had one other thing, but that's it. If I think of it, I'll bring it up tonight. Okay, last chance for commissioner comments. So we'll have some more comments this evening. Reports from county staff. We have any staff here today to care to provide a report?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This afternoon, I come to you to provide you with some information, basically, and ask for your support. Last week, on the 20th, the airport received an award letter and grant agreement from the Federal Aviation Administration, the amount of $572,072. The grant is for the Grove Farm Cultural Resources and Mitigation Plan, including the demolition, the airport layout plan update, and also the runway 2 runway visibility zone environmental assessment. The grant agreement needed to be signed by President Baker and the county attorney that same day and returned to the FAA no later than the following day. So we acquired those signatures and we got it off to the FAA, and so we will be able to achieve that grant. There's a county match required in the amount of $31,782 and the same from the Maryland Aviation Administration. The county match was approved in the airport CIP under environmental assessment project. The total projects amount to $635,636. On August 22nd, I was in and briefed the commissioners that we did apply for the grant that was submitted to the FAA. Today, I'm just seeking your support in this grant submittal that was conducted last week. So I just seek your support in that so we have that documented.
Second?
Yes.
I'm sorry, who was first?
So we have a motion and a second on the request and the recommendation. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you very much, and also thanks to all the staff that were able to pull this together. There's a lot of people that made this all happen, so appreciate it. Thanks.
Any other staff here care to provide a report today? How are you, Ms. Lewis?
Good, I'm fine. How are you doing?
Good.
I'm here to provide a little bit of information and to and ask for your participation as business ambassadors. The EDC has just launched a business ambassador program, and it'll happen on October 26 and 27. All elected officials at the local, state, and federal level have been invited to serve as ambassadors, as well as business people and educators in our community. So we look forward to having you participate in the visits and send a really strong message to our companies that we appreciate them doing business here in the county. Secondly, just a brief update on manufacturing in the county. As you know, we do have a manufacturing roundtable, one of the few across the state of Maryland. And as an offshoot of that, the members of the roundtable wanted to learn more about lean manufacturing. There has been a lean peer group in session for about the last 7 or 8 months. It will continue for a year. There are 8 companies participating, with now a number of companies who have come to observe as word has spread through the community. I just wanted to tell you that it's an interesting dynamic that has developed. It's a very tight group of manufacturers who each are allowed to bring 3 people from their company to the session. And in this session, there are folks that are new to lean manufacturing, and then there are folks who are very experienced, and they help each other implement lean practices. And I was just at the last meeting, and I thought this was important to report back to you. They open each meeting with a statement about what's been happening at their company when they attempt to implement the lean practices. And one company opened with this statement. He said, "The best thing that my company has done this entire year is join this group." A second one opened his remarks saying, "I don't feel so alone in the challenges that I face in running my business." And a third one opened with, "You know, we were here last month and such a company recommended that we implement one of the strategies that they use to address a particular issue." And he said, "I'm here to report that we did that at my company and it worked." We're using this lean peer group and manufacturing table as a really important tool to keep the businesses that we already have and make them stronger and help them expand. We're also, I didn't expect this, but we're also using it as an attraction tool, because as we talk to prospective manufacturers thinking about locating here, we're able now to say to them, the county supports manufacturing. We like manufacturing. We make things here. Manufacturing is important to us. We have organized our manufacturing community. We have a roundtable. We have a lean peer group. And today, I'm very excited to say we have added a new manufacturer to Washington County who is coming to us from outside the county. We are not allowed to divulge the name, but we did use this message of the county supporting manufacturing and our roundtable and our lean peer group. And as a result, the company will be joining the roundtable and the lean peer group. So that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Any other staff comments? Mr. Slocum?
Quick update. These are important dates, so I'm going to repeat them probably the following Tuesdays. Next Tuesday, there is no meeting, as you know. We are headed to Landco first, and then the Hancock Library groundbreaking celebration this evening, and then the Hancock evening meeting tonight, of course. Next, on the 10th of October, it'll be a joint meeting with the City of Hagerstown. Excited about that. And on the 24th, and then also on the 10th, the evening of the 10th, will be Town of Smithsburg's evening meeting. And on the 24th, the evening meeting in Morgansville, Ruriton. Speaking of Morgansville, the Ruriton Club has sent a request. There is playground equipment over at the Winter Street School that is not being used. I did check with our Director of Public Works, and provided it vets out safety-wise and so forth, that Morgansville Ruriton has asked that that playground equipment can be located at their playground. Before we continue, is there any exception from the commissioners on that idea?
Yeah, the only thing that I thought I was always told over the years that liabilities and whatever follows the equipment, how do you get a release? I think that's what Jim Sterling always told me.
And that is one of the reasons I checked with Jim. I think we'll have to vet that, provided that's vetted and appropriate through John's office and through our insurance. Are there any other exceptions that would be taken?
Somehow they have to assume the upgrade of safety standards when the equipment is installed.
Sure.
Because they'd have to accept the equipment as is.
Yeah.
We don't know, obviously it was at the school.
Right.
So I'm assuming the school has, records and maintenance records of that.
And Jim did check the funding source to be sure the funding sources were appropriate as they were used, so there's no POS contact and so forth. That's all been checked. But we will check with the insurance and so forth to see that.
I think once you get those clearances, checked out, I think that's a great reuse of it. It can continue to be used by the public.
And the only other thing is the donation, the donut drop has been asked for a donation from the HRT in the amount of $5,000. It doesn't require your approval at that level. It's lower than their the threshold requiring your formal approval. I just wanted to make you aware of it, that the new year is coming already, and those funding sources are being sought. So, yeah. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Any other staff comments? Boards and commissions? None today? Okay, moving right along. Emergency Management Performance Grant Approval to accept award funding. Ms. Laypole? We'll come back to that. I had it marked off.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Laypole, Grant Manager with the Office of Community Grant Management, and with me is Deputy Director Charlie Summers and Professional Services Administrator Charles Brown with the Division of Emergency Services. We are seeking approval for the acceptance of the award from the Maryland Emergency Management Agency in the amount of $103,381. Emergency Services submitted a funding request on April 3rd, 2017, and has been awarded funding to purchase 2 fully equipped emergency response vehicles for a total cost of $81,292 and 3 APX 8000 portable radios with access for a total cost of $22,089. The Office of Community Grant Management has reviewed the grant guidelines. The performance period for this federal grant is October 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2018. There is a match requirement associated with this grant. Matching funds will be in the form of budgeted salaries. Are there any questions?
Any questions, comments? Motion to approve and move forward.
So moved.
Motion is second to approve the recommended motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. Okay, let's go back to citizens' participation, or you have something else? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. We're here to also seek approval today for the State Homeland Grant Security, or the State Homeland Security Grant Program, seeking approval to accept the award from the Maryland Emergency Management Agency in the amount of $116,615. Emergency Services submitted a funding request on March 10th, 2017. The grant will pay partial salary for the emergency management specialist, the cost of the Washington County Citizens Notification Program, and other costs which include training, equipment, public outreach, and response capabilities. The Office of Community Grant Management has reviewed the grant guidelines. There is no matching fund requirement associated with this grant. However, at least 25% of the grant funds must be spent on law enforcement-related tasks or equipment. Are there any questions?
How long have we been receiving this grant?
Several years, because it's 2001.
So what happens, I don't know, maybe they'll never ever do away with it. So what happens on both of those grants if they decide to do away with the grants?
Well, we're going to probably have to then formulate the payment of the salaries that go to the emergency grant specialist into the general fund. Also, obviously,
That means
some
the county
program.
will have to pick up these costs?
What, sir?
So that means the county could possibly.
County would have to pick
if
up
they
those
support
costs.
it.
And we also have some very important programs like our citizen notification system, our reverse 911 type system, which is paid for this grant, which was $32,000 the last contract.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, citizens' participation. We have any citizens here today who would care to participate? Okay. Citizens' participation. We have any citizens here today that would care to participate? Okay. Okay, let's move down to State Homeland Security. We already did that one. Rejection of bid PUR 1314, 10,000 gallon double bulkhead fuel center upgrade. Ms. Noggle, how are you today? And Mr. Bradshaw.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Being it's the first time in front of you guys, I want to introduce myself. I'm Brandy Noggle. I'm the buyer for the purchasing office now. And I'll be here many more times, I'm sure. Today, the recommendation presented to you is for the rejection of bid 1314 for 10,000 gallon double bulkhead fuel center upgrade. The recommendation to reject this bid is due to the bids exceeding the departmental's capital improvement plan budget. The bid was published in a local newspaper, listed on the state website as well as the county's website. 4 companies downloaded the document, and we did receive 4 bids. At this point in time, the department has decided to not proceed with the project, but may revisit it in the future. The funding in the amount of $39,019.48 is the remaining balance of this department's capital improvement plan budget for this project. That concludes my recommendation to reject this bid.
Questions, comments? Motion to reject?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Express approval, Smithsburg annexation of Cloverly Hill. Mr. Goodrich, how are you today?
Good afternoon, everyone. Steve Goodrich, the Director of the Department of Planning and Zoning. I'm seeking the County Commissioners' action on express approval for the proposed annexation by the town of Smithsburg of 65.5 acres that is owned by the Cloverly Hill LLC. The property is located at the east of the intersection of Maryland Route 64 and Maryland Route 77, which is east of the town of Smithsburg. And in your agenda materials, you have several maps, but the very first one that you come to will be the location map for this property, and it gives you a broad view of the area and the location of this property. There are 3 parcels included on that map. The blue area is the current boundary of Smithsburg. The green area is the annexation property of 65.5 acres, and that red line is the county's urban growth area, or the town growth area boundary for the town of Smithsburg. I know that my time is limited, so I'm going to jump right to the most important part of the presentation. The county planning staff feels that this express approval is needed due to the significant difference between the uses that are allowed in the town's general commercial zoning and the amount of acreage that would be devoted to that zoning if the property is annexed. That's really the basis for asking for your express approval. I want to give you some more information in this presentation about how we came to that conclusion. In your agenda material, after the next map that you come to, after you get through the annexation plan, which talks about how the developer and the town will provide services to this annexed area, there is another series of maps that I want to draw your attention to that will help further locate and identify the zoning differences that cause the need for this express approval. The first map that's labeled Exhibit Number 1, provided by Cloverly Hill LLC, shows the property, shows an up-close view of the property that's going to be annexed and its relationship to the town of Smithsburg. The annexation area is shown in red, the town is shown in that pale green color, and the property will be connected to the current town boundaries by that long, slender piece of property to the lower left side of that drawing. That's the Maryland Route 77 right-of-way that connects the annexation property to the town. The next map in the package is labeled Exhibit Number 2. That was provided by the applicant, and it shows the county zoning on the property. I added the boundary of the annexation area because it wasn't on there to begin with, and I added the label of county zoning. But you can see now that the majority of the annexation area has a current zoning under the county jurisdiction of residential transition. That would be the blue area. And then in the lower left-hand corner, there's a small orange area, which is the county's business local zoning designation. There's about 1.05 acres of business local and 60.4 acres of residential transition in the county zoning. The next map is labeled Exhibit Number 3, shows Cloverly Hills request for zoning in the town. The same property outline. The area that's shown in the reddish color is, if it's annexed into the town, would get the general commercial zoning from the town of Smithsburg. That is 25.7 acres. And then the purple area would get the town's, Smithsburg's town residential zoning. That would be the purple area. And notice that there is no defined boundary between the two. It's a little hazy, not that it won't be defined further during some development plan review, but at this point in the game, those are estimates of where the two different zoning categories would go. So now I've covered the acreage and the zoning information, and that is really the basis for the need for express approval. There's 65.5 acres proposed for annexation. In the county, you have 1.05 acres of business local and 60.4 acres of residential transition. In the town, the proposal is to have 25.7 acres of general commercial and 35 acres of town residential. And again, the rest of that right-of-way, or the rest of that area is in the right-of-way to make that connection to the existing town boundary. So why do we need to do this? Why do I need to gain your express approval to address this issue? And for that, to explain that, I'll just read verbatim from Section 416 of the Land Use Article of the Maryland Code. I've put this in the agenda report form for you to read on your own, but I'll read it out loud for the benefit of anyone else in the audience. It says, without the express approval of the county commissioners, for 5 years after annexation by a municipality, the municipality may not allow development of the annexed land for land uses substantially different, and there's the key, for land uses substantially different or at a substantially higher density than could be granted in the zoning classification of the county. That's why we have to go through this express approval, because the staff determined that the uses that could be allowed in the town are substantially different than what would be allowed under the county zoning. There are some very clear similarities and some very clear differences between the county and town zoning. And so again, to illustrate that, I provided you with some other information in your agenda. The last 5 pages of the package have some comparisons. On the first 2 pages, there are 3 charts where I provide the acreage and the zoning comparisons, what will be in the county and what will be in the town. There's a chart there that compares the residential development comparisons, the square footage per each use, and the number of units that might be yielded if the land was developed to its maximum potential under the county and the town zoning. And then finally, the final chart on the separate page is the changes in the number of units and the maximum allowable densities that you would be realized in the county and in the town. The last 3 pages, well, and let me just summarize for you. In the uses in the residential districts are virtually the same in the county and the town. Single family, 2-family, and duplex units. Townhouses are permitted in the county or in the town zoning as a special exception, but townhouses are not permitted in the county zoning. So the uses are the same. The minimum lot sizes are different, and the acreage that would be devoted to those uses is different too between the county and the town. The last 3 pages of the agenda material is a list of the uses that are permitted in the town's general commercial zoning category, and the ones that are highlighted in the gray are the uses that are not permitted in the county's business local district. And so you can see there are plenty of uses that are allowed, that would be allowed in the town, that would not be allowed in the county. And I think all I really need to do is to direct your attention to the bottom of the first page and show you that a mall would be permitted, a shopping mall would be permitted in the town's general commercial zoning, and that would not be a permitted use in the county's business local district. Aside from the differences in uses, there will be a substantially larger amount of land, acreage, in the town's general commercial district than there is right now in the county business local district. There's 1.05 acres in the county of commercial zoning and over 24 acres in the town commercial zoning. So that's how we arrived at the conclusion that the express approval is necessary, and that's what we're seeking from the commissioners today, is that express approval to the town to allow the development under the town zoning rather than it being restricted to the county zoning. I want to make it really clear that the annexation can occur no matter whether you give your express approval or you don't give your express approval. But if you do give it, the development can occur according to the town zoning immediately after the annexation occurs. If you do not give your express approval, development can occur immediately after the annexation, but it would have to comply with the county zoning for 5 years. After that 5-year time limit expires, then the development, if it hadn't taken place in those 5 years, then the development could happen under the town's zoning. So once again, I'm looking for your express approval of that annexation because the uses that are allowed are substantially different. I can answer any questions.
Question I have, Steve, is apparently this is being, as part of the agenda at Smithsburg's Town and Council meeting tonight, public hearing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it's tomorrow.
This here, Tuesday, September 26th.
Is it Tuesday? Okay, then it is. Yeah, I knew it was soon, and I was planning, if you make your decision today, then I will inform them of what the decision is. Technically, though, the county has 30 days upon the receipt of this application to respond to it, and those 30 days won't expire until the first week in October. And so if there isn't a response by this evening, it'll be up to the town to decide to have another hearing after the 30 days has expired.
I guess my question is, whether we do or don't approve, does it have any bearing upon tonight's public hearing?
Have they voted as a council to?
They have not. They'll have a hearing.
Well, I mean, obviously, if the commissioners grant express approval, then that changes the zoning. I mean, that's in effect. If the annexation is approved, so.
Right. If you grant your express approval today, then I can convey that, and that can be offered as part of the testimony during our hearing this evening.
So there's no conflict? No prejudgment then, or?
For me, I'd certainly want to hear what the town has to say. And the other part is, for the property, I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
No, I just, yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm confused, what goes first, the chicken or the egg here? I mean, that's.
Well, I don't know if this helps, but tonight's Smithsburg here is a hearing, and they will take testimony from any interested property owners. The annexation is not going to occur tonight. They'll have to take that information and consider it and make a decision at a later date.
Mr. Davoblis made a move there. Maybe he wants to.
I can help clarify a little bit as to where the procedures stand.
I mean, I'm looking at Mr. the President. Can he?
No, it's up to you whether you want to allow him to speak, but he's welcome to speak. Yeah, you're welcome. He's welcome.
I'm not
Real
going to change
quick.
my position now.
What did you say?
I'm not going to change my position.
Okay. I just want to help clarify a little bit. The line of the zoning that Steve referenced has been defined. The annexation petition was submitted in March with a request that the petitioner be allowed to have a dialogue with the town of Smithsburg's Planning Commission. So in having that dialogue with the Planning Commission, a specific line was defined that's a little more clear than what was submitted with the ARF. So there has been a line defined with the consent, approval, and participation of the town's Planning Commission. The town's Planning Commission has also recommended this zoning, this composition of the acreages and the GC and the TR that Steve described. In fact, the biggest difference between the requested zoning that's going to be the subject of the annexation and the county zoning, which is that commercial area up near 491, was actually the suggestion of the town Planning Commission. And there's a long story behind that, the details of which really aren't that important, but the gist is that the commercial area down near 64 and 77 is not going to be usable for a foreseeable future period of time because there's the intervening residential properties that you see on the map, sort of the white block area. So the town actually requested that we add commercial zoning to the proposal so that there's something more developable in the near future. That's where the piece up near 491 came about. And yes, you're correct. The public hearing tonight is with the town council on the annexation petition and on these particular zoning requests. So yes, that is tonight. Your decision does not have to be today, but if it were to be today, we could report to the town, this is where the county decided. If you don't want to decide today, we will tell them it's pending with you. The town then will have their hearing, and we can then report back to you. So hopefully that helps. And Steve, you can have these.
I do have another question there. Looking at Exhibit 1, when you look at that map, and I'm following the red, it looks like you're using the road to keep this property contiguous, or do they own all of that property in there that's in the red? It extends off of 77, goes back into town.
So that long strip at the bottom and kind of to the left of the bigger body of the parcel, that's the right-of-way of Maryland Route 77, and that's what they're using as to create the contiguous or the adjacent or the connection to the town boundary. The developer doesn't own that property. It's
I
just
don't
the
ever
road.
remember a road being used. I'm just saying, I can't remember that a road being used to justify a property being contiguous to the town, to a town. Have we done that in the past?
Yeah, it has been. And in fact, you talked about Cleary Hill earlier in the meeting, and a portion of that property is contiguous to the city because of the right-of-way of Route 144, West Washington Street.
And just to clarify, it's not the county. It needs to be contiguous to the annex. So it's not, so when we say we, it's not we.
Right.
It's the city, it's the developer and the city,
Right.
or the town of Smithsburg, that makes it contiguous. Under Maryland law, you can use that right of way to do.
Another point regarding the roadway, we recently paved a roadway to get under an annexation from years ago, paved some roadway in the town of Smithsburg so that they would adopt it and accept it. It took close to 24 months to get that process completed. And with a typical annexation, if I understand correct, we wouldn't have, the commissioners wouldn't have necessarily the consent authority, but with express approval they do. Is that correct? For the annexation.
I'm not understanding your question. I'm sorry.
If a conventional annexation came before the Board of County Commissioners, I'm not sure that there's a right of refusal, so to speak. In other words, it's an annexation and it can occur. Is that accurate?
Yeah, if there's the express approval, or the need for express approval is really the only opportunity that the county government has to participate in an annexation
Right.
of any kind.
Okay.
If there wasn't this need and the difference between the zoning, there would be no need for express approval and no participation.
Okay, so to my point about that is we've before had to accept some annexations that fall on boundary lines and include half our roadways or no roadways, or the lines have become very difficult to work with for our Director of Public Works, engineering staff, et cetera, to maintain. With express approval, we may have some opportunity to try to make this work better for everyone. That's my point with this express approval request.
If we have a condition like that where the responsibility or the jurisdiction over a portion of a road becomes an issue because of the annexation, yes, certainly this would be your opportunity to add that to any comment that you might make. I don't know that that exists in this case. I believe that the right-of-way that they're using is all state right-of-way, but I can clarify that if you want.
Yeah, so right where it says on Exhibit 1, it says Maryland Route 77.
Right.
Right about where the 77 is, there's a line that goes off toward the bottom of the page, and that's later begins your annexation line in red.
Right.
Is that a roadway?
Yes.
Okay. So my thought would be that if that roadway is included in the town, that's completely different than if that annexation line begins on the right-of-way and the town then has the opportunity to develop that without the county's say into what improvements and so forth may be necessary to accommodate the additional traffic and the citizens out there. It's something I think needs to be considered.
You want me to make that a portion of whatever action the commissioners take today?
Talk to him to make sure you understand exactly what he's looking for. You don't have to do it now.
Can we
You guys
get
can
together
meet.
after and you can show me on it? Okay.
I do have another question. All of those little, I think there's 6 of them, those little properties in there, are they going to be forced to annex in?
No. That's why the boundary goes, that's why the red area goes around them, because they're being excluded from the annexation.
So can the the town of Smithsburg come back and annex those properties in without our approval?
An annexation like that, and maybe you can help me with that, an annexation where you have existing property owners and existing development takes a certain percentage of those properties to agree to it. I don't believe there's anything such as a forced annexation where people get taken in if the majority of them don't want it.
If you don't want your property annexed in, and if you don't want your property annexed in, and 4 of those 6 property owners say they do, then the other 2 is going to be forced to annex. You said it had to be a majority.
That would be if the town wanted them.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll be bringing. Any commissioners want to decide today, or you want to wait to see how tonight goes at Smithsburg?
I think we should wait until tonight, and then we also have an upcoming meeting with Smithsburg. That might be another opportunity to talk about this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Intergovernmental Cooperative Purchase Automated Speed Enforcement System, Mr. Curry. How are you this morning? And Sheriff Mullendore, how are you this morning?
Good afternoon. This is Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing. Subject before you is intergovernmental purchase of automated speed enforcement systems. I need to apologize to the board for a typo error I have on the agenda. Please let the minute reflect that the PUR number should be PUR 1366. Recommended motion is to move to authorize our resolution, the approval for the Washington County Sheriff Office to enter into a contract to lease an automated speed enforcement system at a cost of $3,100 per month per unit, up to 20 speed enforcement cameras from Breckford Traffic Safety Incorporated of Hanover, Maryland, and to utilize another jurisdiction's contract, which is an RFP number 2016-105.
Could you move the mic just a little closer to you, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
There you go. Sorry about that. That was awarded by the Calvert County Department of Finance and Budget and Purchasing Office. The intention of the contract is to enter into with a qualified contractor to lease an automated speed enforcement system cameras that will be installed around the county. The contract period will be for 1 year with 2 one-year options on an as-needs basis and be exercisable at the discretion of the county. The Code of Public Laws does allow for the county to enter into a contract that was competitively bidded by another jurisdiction. In this case, the county will see an administrative savings by not procuring and administering a contract and going through the bidding process, and cost savings will be saved there. As far as the fiscal impact, it is said to be that the potential will be from the revenue proceeds, and I'll let the sheriff elaborate more on what the system will do.
One additional addendum to that, there is also a collections contract that is associated with that at a 28% rate, which has also been previously negotiated through Calvert County. I do want to point out that this is also the same contract that the city of Hagerstown piggybacked on to previously for these cameras, so it would be the same contractor. There are a number of things that make this. First of all, we reviewed 2 other contracts, and this by far was the least expensive of the 3. And secondly, because this process is already vetted through the district court, it makes it a viable product for Washington County as well. There will be up to 15 cameras initially installed, and we'll be working with the contractor once the contract is approved to get those installed and operational. We look to do that probably sometime in November. Happy to answer any questions. Excuse me.
So in addition to the $3,100 a month lease, they're going to get 28% of the revenues collected.
No, sir. That's only on collections, and that would be a minimal amount. That's only if somebody fails to pay their fine.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, well, I don't support them, but anyhow, it's up to the commissioners that to have the discussion and to decide how to move forward.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? No. So, thank you, and good luck.
Thank you, Joe.
Sheriff, you might want to stay here for just a couple minutes.
All
Thank
right.
you. If I may address the board, County Administrator Slocum has asked me to bring another matter to the board at this time for approval because it so closely coincides with the issue that you've just considered and approved. And if I could take you back to August 8th of this year, the board approved the addition of a new full-time sheriff's deputy under the Community Deputy Program. Part of that approval process gave consideration to the use of proceeds from the implementation of the speed camera system that you just approved as a cost-sharing measure with the participating municipalities in the Community Deputy Program to provide community deputy services within their town limits. So the approval that's requested here today to coincide with your approval of the speed camera system contracts is to use the funds that were or that would be realized from the speed camera installation to fund expenses of the community deputy while that individual is going through the law enforcement academy. And the academy is scheduled to start on October 2nd.
That's correct.
Yes. So just in a couple of weeks. I don't know what other details or information the board would be interested in hearing at this time. County Administrator has any comments?
So it's a fairly complex process, but with Kendall's help and discussion with the sheriff, the vendor approval today. It's moving along quite rapidly. With the towns and the beginning of the training will be the expenditure, which will be funded by the camera system. That's really the only difference that we had, or clarification required, is that the cadet going into the beginning classes in
It's October 2nd. It's
October
a little
2nd.
over 6-month academy, and then there would be a 4-month training process, field training.
So
This is going to pay for how many cadets?
Just one.
Just one.
That's correct.
And it's only paying for the training, it doesn't pay for the officer once it goes to the municipality.
That's correct.
The municipalities will be responsible to pay for their own deputy.
That's correct.
yes, and under the agreement already in place, approved by the commissioners, the vehicle is paid for by the county commissioners, but that's also reimbursed by the camera revenue.
Say that again?
The vehicle, the cruiser.
So how many deputies do you have out in the municipalities now?
We have one full-time in Williamsport. That's the only one we have currently.
Okay, so with this, and then you're gonna have one full-time taking care of multiple municipalities.
That's correct, 4 municipalities.
So at some
We,
point in time, you may come in, those deputies decide to leave, we'll need 2 more trained, but they both left.
no, once we train and have that position available, then we will maintain that as long as the towns still want the position. Now, at some point, Commissioner, we may end up coming back because I understand Funkstown may want to participate as well. And if that's the case, we'll talk with all of the municipalities and see how that will work out. And so we may come back before you again for a future proposition.
So once we have a deputy on the beat, so to speak,
Mhm.
that deputy's salary will be paid for by the municipalities based on the percentage of time that they'll receive the deputy in their community.
That's correct, as
But what-
presented under the August 8th.
But what we're looking for is, because we're adding a new community deputy, we can't take away from your current force, we need to add to your force. So
That's correct.
that means we have to have a new hire. More than likely, that new hire will have to go through the academy.
That's
And just
correct.
during the time that the deputy is in academy, through this revenue source, we'll pay that salary for the interim.
That's correct.
And this could be a model going forward for maybe Funkstown, if they would like to join on a couple months down the road.
That's
We'll
correct.
make the same offer available to them and the other communities,
That's correct.
And that's just for training, correct?
just for training.
Reimbursement is from the speed camera revenue at the end.
That's
So I
correct.
guess my question to Mr. Monterana, I don't support speed cameras. What should I do here?
I don't know if that's a legal question or not, but it's, obviously it's a separate issue. I mean, the speed cameras have been approved, so, the majority of the board has, so that contract has been awarded, that contract's gonna be signed, so it's gonna go into effect, so there will be revenue coming from that, so, I mean, it's a separate issue.
So I'll still get to make decisions on the revenue. Yeah, oh, I
I
am.
mean, it's a separate issue. I mean, the speed cameras have already been approved by the majority of the board.
Okay, answer.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to,
Baker, since this is a separate issue, speed cameras already reviewed, we were willing to support this
correct.
because the project and process is already involved.
Yep.
Funding sources there.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be calling you. Kaufman Nursing Home Incorporated. Mr. Hill, Vice Chair. Mr. Mason, Executive Director. And Mr. Zuratik. I hope I pronounced that close. How are you today? All three of you.
Well, thank the commissioners and everybody that's helped Kaufman and myself get there. I'm Nick Hill, and it's Steve Zordich and
Nick Mason, as Commissioners announced. We sent a packet with you. Do you all have that handy? The history of Kaufman, and I just want to reiterate, was Andrew Kaufman, who donated approximately $3 million starting back in the 60s. And it was dedicated in 1962. Medicare come along in 65. That helped fund the processes. And from 65 to 92, I can't tell you the amount that the county contributed to the health care of the individuals at Kaufman. But things has changed over the years, and of course we're struggling. We got more baby boomers. We're struggling to keep our head above water. We are a 501(c)(3). We have to do some rehab. We have 59 bids. Mr. Kaufman donated, I guess, a quality of probably over $60 million to the community. He lived here. He was a mortician. His mortuary funeral home still stands down on Antietam Street. I'm sure you all know where that's at. But the reason we're here today, we have a piece of property that's landlocked between Kaufman Nursing Home, and everybody knows it's on 1302 Pennsylvania Avenue, and the state hospital's in front. The health department's in front, state hospital's to the immediate north. And we have a piece of property on your handout there showing a lot of 53 acres. Excuse me, 0.53 acres, excuse me. Thank you, Steve. And the current right-of-way or access to our property, if you can see the gray line on there, comes right through the middle of a yard. And that takes up about 0.25 acres. And if we would want to pave that, that would certainly make inconvenience. It's got 100-year-old trees, picnic area, et cetera in it. As you move back by the dumpster, the piece of property we'd like to obtain is where the dumpster pad's setting. And the two current sheds that sit down strictly below that belong to the health department above us. They are permanently watered and electric in place. And they're sitting on the Kaufman property. And if you follow the property line down there, we got 2 parking spaces that actually sit on the county property. So it's kind of really gummed up, and the only piece of the property would be valued to is one of 3 owners. And that's the county with the health department or the state hospital or Kaufman. We had the appraisal done by Mr. Bowers. I gave you a copy of that. We think it's well over appraised for the amount in excess of $100,000 an acre. There's no right of way to it other than these 3 people. The reason we need the property in this location is we need to add a wing for rehabilitation. If you go by the property and the sign out there, you'll see we're a 5-star rehabilitation facility. We have 59 bids. Every Medicare, Medicaid patient we have there, we lose $60 a day per person. Everybody that's private pay there is even. Everybody there's for rehabilitation pay enough to help offset our cost to stay in business. Last year wasn't a good year for Kaufman. This year we finally got to the black. But we need more rehab people. Our existing inside facility is like an old college dorm where you have 4 beds and 1 bathroom. That doesn't meet the health standards today for rehab. You need a single bathroom and a single room. So we're prepared to try and make a capital campaign to add a wing to do that, not increase people, but to maintain our viability as we all get more mature. So what we're offering is asking the county to take into consideration to sell this piece of property to us. We've maintained it for, I don't know, since 1962, and nobody really knows where the lines are at. And since this drawing, there's been another shed added. If you follow in the driveway, there's a dotted line that takes you to the state hospital. Somebody's added another shed right in that right-of-way that you can't see here. So if this could work out, and I've had Steve from Frederick Seibert, where we make a transfer and clean all these lines up, get the right-of-way where it should have been, and this would give Kaufman the viability to continue successfully for the next many years. We have no place else to go. Yes, sir. Question?
Nick, what's the shaded area? I see who owns that property?
That's the health.
It would be the county with our guaranteed right-of-way.
County owns it, but it's Kaufman has a right-of-way over it.
So we could pave it, mow it.
So the health department owns that?
Yes, the recorded deed shows the easement not over the actual paved area for a portion of the easement.
Very good question. We weren't dealing with this in the 60s, or the 1954 is when the first building started, so.
So this would in effect clean up some of those problems that exist on the deeds.
In 92, I'm sure it was surveyed and with the county commissioners involved and the deeds written, signed by Dick Roulette as president to put this property the way it is now. How it got there, I wasn't involved in 92, so I can't help you with that. To the left or the north of the hospital currently, if you go out there, you and I can't wrap our arms around the trees. I mean, they're big, they're huge.
That's in this portion right here.
From Pennsylvania Avenue in.
Oh, okay, got it.
And actually, the roadway that goes across to the State Hospital, which is dotted there, that belongs to the county, but I'm sure.
I don't know if there's an easement for that or not.
I think the state hospital uses that for their main entrance to the rear of their building for kitchen supplies, et cetera. And I'm not here to criticize anybody. I'm here on the account to try to make Kaufman a viable project and maintain.
Does Kaufman Nursing Home have anything like a patient charity fund or anything that might help patients who can't afford the full cost themselves? Does anything like that exist in the nursing home industry?
Different places have assistance funds, but we don't have a special assistance fund account set up at this particular point in time.
At times we get a bequeath, but again, it is what it is.
Well, I'm just wondering, I would be in favor of conveying in some manner the property to you. It's certainly your company, your organization, nonprofit, provides a valuable service in the community. I wonder if maybe in lieu of the $10,000 revenue coming to the county, could that be used to go towards such a fund?
Well, what we have, the answer could be very possible, yes. What we've spent to date, we had the appraisal done, and it was in excess of $2,000. And I'm going to have an additional $7,000 involved in surveying and cleaning up the rights. And should we obtain the property, we would work with the county or the health department to relocate their dumpster pad as necessary when necessary, and pay for all that cost.
So you're going to take care of all that?
Yeah, we have not asked the county for any money, other than we'd like to have that piece of property.
You'll get all the work done, won't cost us anything but $1 to convey it to you.
Sir, yes, sir.
How much did you say? $1. Any other questions, comments? Motion to create your motion for
Pay all expenses. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Did you get the motion? Yes, sir. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Thanks to Commissioner Myers. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good luck with everything.
Yeah, because that includes any legal requirements related to conveying the property.
Yep.
So we'll take care of all that, all expenses.
Just invite us out to the ribbon cutting.
Thank you. Okay.
Make it on a Tuesday. Thank you.
There's a process why we
Mhm.
all expenses.
Okay, now we're into National 4-H Week proclamation. And we have, shoot, we had a public hearing. Can we come back to you? I'm sorry, I'm supposed to do a public hearing. Yes, sir. Public hearings on snow yacht, no. Okay, next on the agenda is a public hearing concerning the Maryland Community Development Block Grant, MD 07CD 37, Penmore Water Connection. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public testimony concerning the matter. The procedure is as follows. We will first have staff introduce the matter, after which the hearing will be open for public comment and testimony. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to testify. After everyone who wishes to speak has done so, the hearing will close. The commissioners may then discuss the issue and take any action that they deem appropriate, including adoption or rejection of the proposal, or they may take the issue under advisement and deliberate at a later date. And now I'd like to ask Ms. Buchanan to introduce the matter.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
To be in accordance with the Code of Federal Regulations, Washington County must provide a public hearing to update and inform citizens on the progress of Community Development Block Grant MD07 CD37 Penmar Water Connections. The Maryland Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, is a federally funded program designed to assist units of local government with activities directed towards neighborhood revitalization, housing opportunities, economic development, and improved public facilities and services. The state of Maryland, specifically the Department of Housing and Community Development, has assumed the responsibility for the administration of the program from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. In 2006, the county was awarded $206,600 in CDBG funds to be utilized by the subrecipient, Washington County Community Action Council, to provide funding to assist low and moderate income homeowners with the cost of connecting to the new water system in the Penmar area. During the 2-year grant period, the grant provided funding assistance to 11 households. The Community Action Council faced challenges with getting residents of the area to participate in the program, despite numerous attempts to contact and qualify residents who needed water connections. As a result, only $106,940 of the grant funds were expended, and the remaining balance returned to the state.
Okay, we will now open the hearing for public comment. We have anyone here today that would care to testify? Seeing none, do the commissioners have any questions? The public hearing is now concluded. Commissioner comments?
Susan, where do we go to from here? Obviously, there's more folks in the Highfield, Cascade area that have not connected, but need to connect. I mean, do we seek out another grant opportunity? Do we do more advertising? Do we get a little stiffer with our nudge? Or
This, of course, was 2006 through 2008, and I was not here at the time, but I did some research into the files to see what had happened. It appeared that there were numerous attempts, people going out actually door to door through the residents, many letters sent out, but the major, I guess, hurdle or barrier was people did not want to have to provide the types of information needed to qualify for the program. You need to provide financial information, and there was some resistance there to do that. It's always a viable option to look into seeing if there would be some reconsideration of the DHCD to let us look into this again. So we could go looking further down those roads for that option to see if we can do something now.
Can I ask Julie to come forward and give some comments? I know that back 2 terms ago, I personally was up there with one family in particular, and Julie, I'm sure she's going to nod. She remembers very well that couldn't afford to hook up, didn't want to hook up. I won't get into the whole story, but I sent a man up with a backhoe and dug the ditch for him, laid the pipe, and did everything but just to try to.
So that grant was sought after specifically for the Penmar Water Project. As part of our water projects, we have mandatory connections. So all the connections have been made for that project. So there's no outstanding water connections in the Penmar project area. So the reduction or the money that wasn't used was for the reasons that were brought up, and that is individuals didn't qualify, or, and more importantly, they just didn't want to provide the documentation to receive that funding. Another thing we did in that project as well is we provided a lien against the property for their allocation connection fee, which was a separate fee from this. This was for their connection from our lateral line into the property. So all those connections have been made.
Okay, any other questions, comments? If none, you want to act today or bring it back?
Ready? Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of recommendation. Any further discussion? We don't need a recommended motion. No.
Right, it's public
Oh, we
hearing. It's
can't vote, right,
informative.
okay. So we have a motion and a second to move forward today and not have to bring it back. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, a motion, I think I covered everything. Didn't miss anything, did I?
4-H week.
Back to the 4-H, I did miss that. Trying to help you girls out. So, National 4-H Week, October 1st through the 7th, and we do have a proclamation. And you two could introduce yourselves, tell us a little history about National 4-H Week, and then we'll present the proclamation.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Travis, and I'm the 4-H Extension Educator with the University of Maryland Extension here in Washington County. This is Amy Simmons. She's the 4-H Administrative Assistant here in Washington County. So in the county, we have about 4,000 youth that are involved in 4-H. We have a little over 300 members that are involved in community clubs and do traditional projects, such as our animal science and leadership and citizenship projects. They exhibit at the fair. They do community service within their communities. And then the remainder of our youth are made up through our outreach programs, our in-school programs, our camps that we do every year. And basically in 4-H, we're giving youth life skills that they can use as adults and become leaders within their communities. So our National 4-H Week is next week. It starts on Monday. Some of our senior members have designed some activities to get all of our youth involved each day next week. So we're looking forward to some of those activities that they've put together for the county. And we just want to thank you for having us here and being able to receive a proclamation.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for the young ladies? Okay, I'd like to ask Mr. Kiefer, Commissioner Kiefer, he'll present the proclamation.
Thank you.
We'll have you come and stand before the flags if you would. So we have a good proclamation here for you for all the good work that you do at 4-H. I'm familiar with 4-H as well. Several years ago, my client had a boss who was president of a local chapter of the 4-H club in Morgan County, West Virginia. And needless to say, I did a lot of administrative work for it behind the scenes. So I know a lot of the good work that's done here. But your proclamation for National 4-H Week, October 1st through 7th, whereas 4-H is America's largest youth development organization, having supported almost 6 million youth across the country thus far, and whereas 4-H has helped 2,500 youth annually in Washington County to become confident, independent, resilient, and compassionate leaders, and whereas 4-H is delivered by Cooperative Extension, a community of more than 100 public universities across the nation that provides experiences where young people learn by doing in hands-on projects in areas including health, science, agriculture, and citizenship. And whereas National 4-H Week showcases the incredible experiences that 4-H offers young people and highlights the remarkable 4-H youth in Washington County who work each day to make a positive impact on those around them. And whereas 4-H's network of 600,000 volunteers and 3,500 professionals provide caring and supportive mentoring to all 4-Hers, helping them to grow into true leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, do hereby proclaim October 1st through the 7th as National 4-H Week throughout Washington County and encourage all our citizens to recognize 4-H for the significant impact they have made and to continue to make by empowering youth with the skills they need to lead for a lifetime. Signed by all 5 commissioners. Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you.
somebody go with the, yeah, thank you. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, my weapon.
2-minute recess.
Okay, a motion to go into closed session for reasons stated.
So moved.
Okay, a motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed?